Right, so I'm about to read Genesis chapter 7, and this chapter's got 24 verses, and it's about God's instructions to Noah and about the floods that God destroyed the world with. Right, so verse 1. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation." And it's got references in St. Matthew 11:28 and St. Matthew 24:38. I remember St. Matthew 11:28, "Come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." But I will verify that later on. Verse 2, "You shall take with you 7, each of every clean animal, a male and his female, 2 each of animals that are unclean, a male and his female." So not just clean animal, but unclean animals also. And I've noticed there in verse 2 that 7 is God's perfect number. It signifies completion. Verse 3, also 7 birds. This Bible is back way. Let me see what Bible is this. The Holy Bible, New King James Version. I'm surprised it's like this. Anyway, verse 3. Also 7 each of birds of the air, male and female, to keep the species alive on the face of all the earth. For after 7 more days, I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And I will destroy from the face of the earth all living things that I have made. Now in the Bible, 40 signify a period of testing. So that's something to be noteworthy. Verse 5, and Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded him. So that verse stood out to me. Obedience again. Imagine if Noah didn't do everything that God told him. He wouldn't be successful in being saved from the flood. He wouldn't be rescued. Verse 6. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters were on the earth. So Noah, his sons, his wife, and their wives went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. So the flood was out there raging, and Noah and his wife and sons were saved. Now verse 8, of clean animals, of animals that are unclean, of birds. That is just a repetition. I've noticed that the Bible likes to repeat things, and when you see it like that, it's something that we have to put an asterisk beside because it's very important. So it's basically, verse 8 is basically saying that Noah should take clean animals and also unclean animals and birds of every kind that creep on the earth. 2 by 2 they went into the ark to Noah, male and female, as God had commanded him. Verse 10, and it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth, just as God said. It's amazing, because when I was younger, we were at Sunday school singing, "Oh, Noah built himself an ark, there's one wide river to cross," Sound like it's just like a fairy tale, but to actually know that this is history, it is amazing. Verse 11, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. I used to sing a song, the windows of heaven are open, and the blessings are falling tonight. It's joy, joy, joy in my heart, since Jesus made everything right. I gave him my old tattered garment. He gave me a robe of pure white. I'm feasting on heavenly manna. That's why I'm so happy tonight. Hey. Awesome. Verse 12. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Now imagine a flood. When the flood came the other day, the people couldn't wait for it to subside. Now imagine in Noah's day, 40 days and 40 nights, flood waters on the earth. On the very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives, and the 3 wives of his son with them entered the ark. They and every beast after its kind, all cattle after their kind, and basically that is saying all the animals went in. That's what verse 14 is saying. Verse 15, and they went into the ark to Noah 2 by 2 of all flesh in which had the breath of life. Okay. So those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. That means if anybody else wanted to go in, they couldn't, because the Lord closed the door. Verse 17. Now the flood was on the earth 40 days. The waters increased and lifted up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. Imagine that. Wow. So Noah was inside the ark, and the waters increased and lifted up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and greatly increased on the earth, and the ark moved about the surface of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly on the earth, and all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered. So the hills were covered. This reminds me of the flood in Jamaica the other day, but it wasn't this bad. Verse 20. The waters prevailed 15 cubits upward, and the mountains were covered. So I'll have to do some research on that 15 cubits upward, what it signifies. Verse 21. And all flesh, that means all human beings, died that move on the earth. Bird, cattle, beasts, and every creeping thing that creep on the earth, and every man. Some people seem to think that babies didn't die, because it said every man. But it said every creeping thing, all flesh died. So everybody died except Noah and his family. Verse 22. All in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life, all that was on the dry land died. That means it seemed to signify that the creatures in the sea, they didn't die. Verse 22, let me read it again. All in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life, all that was on the dry land died. Verse 23, so he destroyed all living things which were on the face of the ground, both man and cattle, creeping thing, and bird of the air. They were destroyed from the earth. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark remained alive. Last verse. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. 150 days. And I think that they mean that Literally. Literally. So that's the end of Genesis chapter 7. So I'm just gonna the next. I don't want to move on quickly yet until I go over everything here line by line, precept upon precept. Because like I said, when God said to Noah that he and his household should come into the ark, there's a reference in St. Matthew 24 verse 8. So let me see what that says. Yes, so St. Matthew 24 verse 38, it says, "For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark." So it seemed to suggest that even though Noah was warning that there was going to be a flood, the people just kept on regardless, and they ignored his instructions. Yeah, that's what that seemed to be saying. And there's also a reference in 2 Peter 2 verse 5 where it says, let me read from verse 4. "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment," verse 5, "and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing the flood on the world of the ungodly." So this is just judgment that will happen in our generation, and it will happen. God has set aside a day to come back and judge the world, and everyone will be paid according to our work. Whoever plant peas will reap peas, and whoever plant corn will reap corn. So I'm going to sit in the book of Genesis 7 for a little while before I move on to chapter 8. Because when I think of God saving just a family out of the entire world, they were so wicked and rebellious that God had to destroy them. And this thing keep going over and over into my brain about the Nephilims. They were mighty giants in the earth in those days, and the daughters of men were attracted to the sons of God and so forth, and they took them as their wives, and they gave birth to giants. So that to me is a mystery that I need to look deeper at, you know. So the book of Genesis has got 50 chapters, and I've just completed chapter 7 so far, and I've seen in each chapter. Genesis 1, it was all about God creating the heavens and earth. And Genesis 2 was really about God completing everything and making man according to his image. And Genesis chapter 3 is about the serpent and the snake that came to test them and cause them to sin and cause them to be driven out of the lovely paradise that God prepared for them. And then I completed chapter 5, which was really, what was chapter 5 about? The genealogy of Adam and how many years they live. Methuselah, the oldest man in the Bible, lived 969 years. And obviously Noah was 500 years old when he had his son. So those people, they were, it was longevity. They really lived long years. And then chapter 6 is really about when the earth was being multiplied with lots of people and everybody became wicked, and God regret making man. Imagine that. verse 6. Genesis chapter 6, verse 6. The Lord was sorry that he created man, that he made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So he decided to destroy the world. And then the flood came, and God did as he said he would. 40 days and 40 nights, flood. And only Noah and his family found favor with God. I love to read this Bible, you see. Every time I read the Bible, things jump out at me that I didn't see before. You know, but especially what I just read in chapter 7, verse 11. In the 600 year of Noah's life, that me was 600 years old. In the second month, the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. How amazing is that? I've been singing this song all these years and had no idea that was recorded in the Bible. So anyway, I just want to give God thanks for the reading of his words, and that he will open up our minds and our hearts and our soul to receive his word and understand why it is written there. The book of the Bible, you got 66 books, and Moses wrote the first 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Those 5 books, and they used to call them the Pentateuch or the Torah. You know? So when I'm reading from Moses' point of view, a man who once lived. And as we go along, we're going to see how Moses obeyed God at some point, but disobeyed him at other times and lost paradise. So that's a second man who lost the promised land and didn't get there. Adam lost paradise, Moses lost the promised land. So the theme of the book is really about obedience and disobedience, you know. So I'm going to stop it there. And our Father, I thank you for your word. Continue to breathe your breath into your children, Father, as we meditate on your word. And may the word renew us and change our hearts and help us to be more like you. In Jesus' precious name. Have a blessed evening. God bless you. Keep subscribing to this channel. There's lots more to come. My next chapter will be chapter 8. But I'm not in any hurry to move on to chapter 8, because I need to sit in the book and pick out things. Because a lot of time, because I'm reading, trying to finish the book, I overlook certain things that God is trying to point out, you know. And when there's reference, I must look as well to see what God is saying. Have a blessed evening. Take care. Bye for now.